Well, the controversial Vrede dairy farm project will take centre stage at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry this week. The Democratic Alliance in the Free State will give introductory testimony on the 220 million rand allocated for the project, for the farming project. Now, the DA initially laid a complaint with the public protector alleging that money meant to benefit the poor had been redirected to companies linked to the Gupta family. All right, let's get more on this story now. And Manqoba Mchunu joins me now live in studio. Manqoba, thank you very much for coming through. So it's an important week at the Commission. It was a very eventful week last week. But let's get to today's testimony. Who can we expect?
Of course, playing the spotlight again on the issues related to the Guptas and, of course, how they were seemingly benefiting from government projects and tenders. Of course, you recall that just in recent weeks, we've been looking at the controversial Gupta landing at Waterkloof. And now the focus shifts to the Estine dairy farm in Vrede in the Free State. Of course, another big scandal involving the Gupta family as well as government officials in that province. So we're expecting two of the witnesses to come and testify today. One of them a DA MP there in the Free State province, Roy Yankelson, sorry for that blank, and as well as we expect Albertus Venter, who's also from the Premier's office, to give testimony there, highlighting some of the regulations and some of the tender processes that were flouted in this instance. Of course, Blaine, we know that this was a big scandal because about 180 million was paid into the tender. Of course, it was meant to benefit local black poor farmers and people who really needed that sort of a boost, you know. So about 80 of them had been promised that they will be part of this project and that they'll benefit from the project. Of course, they will have part ownership into this dairy farm. But of course, we know that didn't happen. In fact, that 180 million was swindled through various Gupta-linked companies, even abroad, even as far as Dubai. And we know that, of course, about 30 million of that actually ended up funding the lavish Gupta wedding in Sun City. So some of the names that we expect to be implicated, of course, is the former agriculture MEC in the Free State, and then who later became the Minister of Minerals, Mosebenzi Zwane. Of course, he's also one of those who's been fingered. But of course, we'll know that the political parties, the DA in particular, had also said that, you know, the close links between, or alleged links between Mosebenzi Zwane as well as the then Premier of the Free State, Isma Khashulo, you know, the allegations that, you know, he too was involved in this. But of course, the public protector issued a report where she cleared those officials from that wrongdoing, in fact, saying that she finds only the Department of Agriculture to have been guilty of maladministration.
The understanding is that she is appealing the various cases in terms of the report. One of them is the Absa Bancor. But that's very interesting. That case will have some sort of bearing with regards to the appeal of the issue of a personal cost order for the Vrede farm. So I think the court there, the High Court there, was waiting for a pronouncement or a ruling from the Constitutional Court. But we'll discuss that a little further. Tell us about the people that were arrested with regards to the Vrede dairy farm project scandal. What was the latest with regard? That case was dropped, isn't it?
That case was dropped, Blaine, by the NPA, of course, which at the time had said that it's dropping the case based on, you know, it gave its own reason why it was dropping the case. But of course, many saying that that was controversial itself, you know, believing that, you know, there could have been possible interference or possible capture. Of course, we've heard testimony before from the State Capture Commission how some of the NPA or prosecutors were also captured with regards to, we heard names like Manqoba Mchunu being used in that case. So, you know, the NPA is saying that it's still going to review that matter, it's still going to look into that matter, but we know that those charges were dropped back then. And of course, about 8 people were arrested, among them Gupta family members themselves.
So this stream of evidence, is it likely to last for about a week?
Certainly, Plain. You recall that the Waterkloof incident also, you know, took us a number of days. So expect to hear various witnesses that are going to come through from the Free State province. Of course, we expect to hear testimonies of these two, but as to who will follow next, we're not sure at this point, but we do know that certainly there will be more witnesses. the commission is playing its cards very close to its chest with regards to some of the witnesses. I think we only get a sense of who's going to testify once the proceedings themselves have finished for the day.
And it's unlikely that we will see the crowds today that we saw last week. I mean, let's just go back there, and I just want to pick your brain on events that happened outside, because you were covering the events that were happening outside. And I was listening to the former president, Jacob Zuma, talking about the case and where we are at this stage. What was the latest? What came out of it? And do we know at this stage when he's going to come back?
Well, Blaine, there's no indication at this stage when he's going to come back. You know, he has agreed with the commission that, of course, he will come back at a later stage, but that he'll file statements himself that, you know, he can then be, of course, cross-examined or questioned on. But, of course, I mean, outside the scenes that we saw there, I mean, it was really a spirited gathering. You know, many people that had come from different provinces, from various provinces, to come and support the former president. Of course, I think when he came out, I think many people excited to see him, of course, saying that they are behind him, they are fully behind him, and also sort of reiterating that sort of narrative that he had been saying, that he's been targeted, and the fact that, you know, he's being persecuted by this commission. So when he took the podium there, you could see the loud applause, the way people were excited, you know, to hear from him. But of course, he repeated the same things that he had been saying at the commission, that he was being targeted and he knows who those people are. But I think what came out of there, Blaine, again, you'll recall maybe in Durban, as back as Durban, when he appeared at the High Court, where he gave warnings to those he says are detractors, to people that have said are behind the campaign or the conspiracy against him, to say, if you continue with this, I am going to reveal your names and I'm going to give information about you that you think I do not know. Because we remember that the former president was an intelligent, was in the intelligence of the ANC back then during apartheid. So he has a lot of information which he says he has about people. And he says, if you continue to push with this, I am going to reveal that information. So a stern warning to those people.
He was saying that, you know, people talk too much and people should behave and not be reckless about serious matters. So I guess sounding this warning, you know, and he kept on asking, you know, talking about him in the third person, what has Zuma done, you know, to be called corrupt? He also spoke about something very interesting that stood out for me in terms of Chris Hani. And Chris Hani was at his home in Lesotho, and then certain people were sent to kill him, but they found out that his children were there, so they decided not to proceed. But he threw up the question, who gave the information that Hani was there? Has those utterances gained any traction?
Well, Blaine, at this point, I mean, I attended yesterday the Hands of Democracy rally that was held in Johannesburg, that was organized by the so-called people that are really fighting the state capture, what they call the state capture fight back. And among them was the SACP as well as the Kathrada Foundation. And of course, they are saying that if the president is making those allegations of spies and so forth, then he himself is implicated in that, because he hired those ministers, those two ministers, as part of his cabinet. And they're saying that, you know, if really they are allegations of or things to be looked into with regards to this matter, then the ANC should actually probe these issues and you know, start an inquiry to look into these issues. But of course, you recall that last week Monday he had testified that two former ministers were apartheid spies, that being the former minister Manqoba Mchunu as well as Sphiwe Nyanda. And of course, those allegations he made at the time, saying that Manqoba Mchunu, for example, was recruited as a spy when he was in Lesotho. And then, of course, on Friday, he again reiterated those utterances to the effect that there were spies within the ANC. And the question that he posed with regard to the Chris Hani matter is that, of course, if Chris Hani was in Lesotho at the time and people were sent to kill him and only stopped on the fact that there was family members there, who then gave that information in Lesotho that Chris Hani was there and that he was at this particular home? So he says, who sold out Chris Hani?
Yeah, you know, the former president was saying, I mean, people talk too much, and if they want to talk about me, I will give it to them as well. I will say things about them as well. So it's going to be a very, very interesting couple of weeks. No doubt you have close, well, your ears to the ground, and you'll let us know in terms of when we get an indication when the former president will be back. Thank you very much indeed for your reporting. Manqoba Mchunu live for us here in studio. He's covering the Estina Dairy, Vrede Dairy Farm project leg of testimony at the State Capture Commission. That's kicking off at 10 o'clock today. We're going to take a quick break. I'll get you more news next. Stay with us.